Howdy, this is Steve. Let me introduce you to the new Massey DRT plugin, or if you prefer, Massey Drt. First things first, what is Drt? It's a drum replacement tool which takes a slightly less conventional approach than most of the competition. Instead of itself generating audio, what it'll do is convert a drum track into Midi notes. You can then trigger your favorite sampler plugin with this new Midi track. This gives you a ton of flexibility since you can precisely edit the Midi notes along with their velocities to fine-tune the performance, or to simply fix detection glitches. The first thing to realize about Drt is it's not a real-time plugin, so you won't find it over in the Insert section of Pro Tools. Instead, you need to head up to the Audio Suite menu, where you'll find it under the Instrument category. Now, let me point out that I'm using the demonstration version of the plugin. So there's a ton of power in the demo alone, and the full version gives you even more flexibility for those trickier tracks. Now, the basic operation of DRT is very basic. Simply select the audio region you want to convert and click Analyze Selection. What we see now is a waveform represented in green, buried under a ton of detected trigger points in yellow. If you tighten the selection in Pro Tools, you'll see that Drt follows right along. And at default, every single detected trigger point is shown, so we're seeing a lot of false positives. And in particular, some double hits on the kick drum and what turns out to be some snare bleed and just other background rubbish. Now, there's two primary sliders down here to help clean things up: Loudness and Sensitivity. Loudness is just that. It helps filter out quieter hits. Sensitivity is an internal parameter of the algorithm, which at times can give you a little more finesse in this whole process. Looking at the graphics under these sliders, what you see in the background is a histogram representation of where all the triggers sit in the spectrum of loudness and sensitivity. For example, these represent the quieter background noise along with that snare bleed, and this chunk up here near the top is the loud kick hits that we're actually trying to hone in on. The stuff here in the middle, that typically reflects some of these bad double triggers that we were seeing right here. Now, one key point to take away from this video is mind the gap. What this means is that you should pay attention to this histogram because it's really useful. Typically, for most tracks, the sweet spot for the slider sits in this biggest gap. So in this case, right here, this gap is where you want to put the slider. See it cleaning things up. There you go. If you zoom out, you can really see there's a demarcation where we hit the right sweet spot. And typically that's it. We're done with the detection process. If you look at the sensitivity, you can see that all these trigger points have been cleared out and are now represented in gray. And again, even on this side, you can see that there's the sweet spot would have been right here. So we could have taken the alternative approach of adjusting the sensitivity to the gap, mind the gap, and we arrive at the same exact set of trigger points. Now there's a lot of dynamics still in these drum hits, so you can use the velocity slider to solve that problem and kind of bring it up a little. And we're done. For a really clean, simple track, typically that's all you need to do. Next, to generate the Midi, click this area labeled Midi drag and drop. Hold the mouse down and drag into the Pro Tools track area. Now, this part in Pro Tools can be a little finicky. What you want to see is that black box around the whole track area, and typically how you can do that is to cross this boundary up into the timeline area and let it go. And when you do that, this nifty Midi imports option shows up. You can simply leave it at the default settings. We definitely need the session start to be the location setting. Otherwise, the Midi notes will not properly align with the audio. At this point, we're done, and we can close out DRT entirely. So let's create a new track for our sampler plugin. And I'll insert the free structure plugin from Djavad and change the patch to one of the built-in studio drums. Now there's a kick down here somewhere. It's at C1. Close this. We'll route the Midi to structure. Here's the important part. DRT spits out C3 Midi notes. So what we need to do is transpose it down to C1 in this situation. It's pretty easy. Just go to the transpose option here in the Events Operations submenu. Transpose from C3 to C1, and we're done. Play back for you. There's a blend of the tracks. There's the track alone. There's the blend. And now that, like I was saying, we have a lot of flexibility. Now that we have a blended track, say it's too dry, we can use structure to really bring up the room sound. And that's it. And that's the beauty of editing in Midi. We really have a lot of flexibility with our sampler to sculpt the sound we want. Thanks.